Hey, Steelers Nation, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why certain myths about the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to stick around, no matter how many times they're debunked? Whether it's the idea that the Steelers can find a star wide receiver anywhere, or that they're always contenders in the playoffs, it's time to challenge some of these stories that have been repeated so many times they've almost become gospel. Today, we're going to dig deep into these myths and set the record straight. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. So hit that subscribe button and leave a like if you're ready for some truth bombs. Let's dive right into it. First up, let's talk about the most persistent myth. The Steelers are all about running the football and stopping the run. You've probably heard it 1,000 times. The Pittsburgh Steelers are known for their hard-hitting defense and their powerful ground game. But when you look at the numbers, it's not exactly the case. Sure, the Steelers' defense has been formidable, but in recent seasons, especially this one, they've struggled to stop the run. Case in point, during a playoff game, they gave up a staggering 299 rushing yards. On top of that, the Steelers finished the regular season with a mediocre 4.1 yards per carry, ranking them 24th in the NFL. Now, for a team historically known for its tough defense and smash-mouth football, these stats don't align with the myth. In fact, the Steelers have only cracked the top 20 in rushing yards per game once since 2016. If we're being real here, this myth doesn't hold water anymore. So why do people keep repeating it? Next, let's tackle the myth that the Steelers can find a wide receiver whenever they want. Sounds good, right? I mean, Pittsburgh has had some notable wide receiver talent over the years. But this year, it's been a different story. The Steelers didn't exactly find a breakout star at wide receiver. And even when they did find talent, they often had to part ways with them before their contracts expired. The truth is, Pittsburgh's track record in finding and keeping wide receiver talent has been shaky at best. It's one thing to draft a great receiver, but when those players don't live up to expectations, or worse, end up being disruptive, it hurts the team more than it helps. The myth of Pittsburgh always being a factory for top-tier wideouts is quickly becoming a thing of the past. But here's another one that really gets me. Nobody wants to see Mike Tomlin and the Steelers in the playoffs. Really? I think everyone would love to play the Steelers in the postseason. Why? Because they've lost 6 straight playoff games by an average of 13.6 points. These aren't just close losses. These are blowouts. In fact, the Steelers haven't won a playoff game in 14 of the last 18 years. So, the idea that they're a dangerous playoff team just doesn't hold up. Year after year, Pittsburgh struggles to make any noise in the postseason, and yet the myth persists that they're always a playoff threat. Now, let's shift gears for a second. Here's another myth that's been floating around. The Steelers' standard of Super Bowl success is still intact. It's a nice thought, but in reality, Pittsburgh has been stuck in mediocrity for years now. The standard used to be about building a championship team year in and year out, but that hasn't been the case for a while. Sure, the Steelers have made the playoffs in some years, but they've failed to get past the first round multiple times. It's not enough to just get into the postseason anymore, especially with teams like Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs, Josh Allen's Bills, and Lamar Jackson's Ravens constantly contending in the AFC. The AFC is a gauntlet now, and Pittsburgh needs to rethink what success means. And then there's the myth that Tomlin's streak of never having a losing season is more important than actually competing for championships. While it's impressive that Tomlin has never had a losing season, this narrative has allowed the team to settle for mediocrity. At this point, just making it into the playoffs isn't enough when you're trying to compete with elite teams. The Steelers need to aim higher than just making it to the postseason. It's time to ask the tough questions. Is this team really building for a Super Bowl run, or are they just happy being a playoff contender? So, what do we make of all these myths? It's clear that there's been a shift in the Steelers' identity. What used to be a team with a clear and consistent formula for success has now become a team mired in mediocrity, struggling to keep up with the league's elite. It's one thing to have a legacy, but it's another to live in the past and settle for less than what this team is capable of. These myths, as comforting as they may be to fans, are starting to look more like distractions from the real work that needs to be done. The good news is that the Steelers still have time to course correct, but it's going to take more than just breaking these myths. It's going to take bold decisions, solid leadership, and a shift in how the team builds for the future. Now, as for the Aaron Rodgers rumor, well, that's probably one of those myths that should be put to rest too. According to sources, the Steelers are not interested in Rodgers, and it makes sense. Rodgers may not have much left in the tank, and Pittsburgh is better off focusing on the future with young talent like Kenny Pickett. So, what do you think? Do you buy into these myths, or are you ready for a reality check? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, for all the latest Steelers news and updates, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.